Hey guys, welcome to Everything Football, where we talk everything football from the NFL, the NCAA, the AAF, the XFL, and the CFL. In today's video, we're going to be covering the AAF Week 2 football slate. I'm going to be going over attendance and my reaction to the actual games, and all of that's coming up next. Starting off with the attendance for this week, we're going to go through all four of them really quickly. The San Antonio attendance was the highest with 29,127 people. Really good for San Antonio. They increased their attendance by about 1,300. So good deal for San Antonio and the league. Moving on to the second highest attendance, which was San Diego at 20,019. Some people are speculating that the attendance was wrong on that one. I don't know. I actually don't expect it. When looking at the pictures, the stadium looked about like it was a little less than half full, and 20,000 people in that stadium is a little less than half full. So I think they'll be. I think the attendance numbers are right there. Moving on to the next one, Birmingham had an attendance of 17,800, which is 17,300. I'm sorry, and that's a little over what they had last week. That's good for Birmingham. The fact that their attendance increased and they have bad weather, inclement weather this week for most of the teams actually. So the fact that that happened, good deal. And then Memphis had a lackluster start with 11,980 in their attendance. So I don't know what to take of that. I think the attendance didn't help that they had a really bad start, and it kind of got the fan base unexcited about the football that they're going to produce. Now we're going to move on to the games. I'm going to go over the games and the points that I took from them. I'm going to start with the Salt Lake Iron game and move on through the games as they happen in order. Starting with the Iron game, for the Stallions, what I got is their running game is really good. Bonio and Oliver looked good. Asiata, I think, took a step back. I expected him to be their premier back. Brandon Oliver, though, really showed some good running, and Bonio did as well. I think he kind of emerged ahead of Asiata for sure. Oliver showed his downhill strength. Schultz on the defensive side for the Stallions, really good pass rusher, maybe the best pass rusher in the league. I think the Stallions are really going to ride him on defense. And then for the Iron, my biggest takeaway is that they're kind of a lucky team right now. They might be the Patriots of this league in terms of luck. They had that fumble that wasn't really a fumble that they got because the review didn't have a good angle on it, which if you watched the game and you saw that review, you understood why he made that call. It's hard to tell from the angles that they were giving. It was hard to tell when the ball came out and if it came out before. And the clear angle that he had, I think, really didn't show it. And so I understand why he made the call he made. And then the Iron O-line actually showed some deficiencies. Not really able to. Trent Richardson was getting hit in the backfield before. He had 41 yards and he had 46 yards after contact. So when you consider that, Trent Richardson was getting hit in the backfield more often than not, and so he was having to break tackles at -3 yards and then make runs out of it. He did really well in the passing game. Like I said, their O-line is weak. They might want to clear that up when they have to go play these tougher defenses, like the San Antonio defense and like the San Diego pass rush, which is really good. And then the Apollos defenses, that would be tough for them because they're very opportunistic. Game 2, Hackenberg didn't pass well. That's my takeaway from Memphis. Not really a passing offense. They're very big. I think their team is built to be physical, built to be a downhill run game, built to get after the quarterback and really dominate the line of scrimmage for their defense. They had a good run game with Stacy being the first ever back to eclipse the 100-yard mark in the AAF. So that was awesome for the Memphis Express. And the biggest takeaway, honestly, was it looked like Hackenberg doesn't fit the offensive system they're trying to run. They're trying to be a gun quarterback. They're trying to put him in the gun and let him make some plays in the passing game. I think they're really trying to show off him and really help him get into the league. But the reality is, if they want to win games, they're going to have to go off of what they're built to do, which is run the football, play action passes. That's what their team looks like they're there and looks like what they were put together for. Arizona, Walford came back down to earth a little bit. Didn't have necessarily a terrible game. Did throw 2 picks, but what happened was I think he got exposed a little bit in his weaknesses. Not that he's a weak quarterback in this league, but that his weakness was exposed in that he wants to be out on the run. He wants to be booting out, rolling out, throwing passes. And what the Memphis Express did was really maintained him and kept him in the pocket, contained him in there. They were going to let him throw from the pocket because they knew that it was hard for him to see. It's hard for him to get passing lanes. They were really like, what I've heard say is you want like explosions going off in his face. So flashing people, and people are flashing in his passing lane, so it's hard for him to throw the ball. And the big takeaway for me is it looks like Arizona's defense is kind of weak. They're playing a weak offense in the Memphis Express, and it didn't appear as though the Memphis Express had any sort of passing game going. Hackenberg really wasn't being helped because Arizona kind of had a decent pass rush on him, but their defense overall, I think, looks a little suspect for one of the top teams in the league. That's something to watch going forward. I think right now they've given up the most points total. I think they gave up 18 and 22, so 40. No, actually, the most points total would be the Atlanta Legends. I'm sorry, but they've given up a lot of points. 40 total points right now, which is pretty high, I think, for the league. Especially for a team that hasn't played an explosive offense yet. So look for that, their defense moving forward into these games, just because that we don't know how good it is. Moving on to game 3, with the Apollos, the one thing I pulled is the Apollos have a team that is built to throw the football. They have deep threats. They have Garrett Gilbert. They have pass-catching running backs. Dearness Johnson did really well in the pass game and in the run game. Their leading rusher, their pass catchers, Charles Johnson, and then Jalen Marshall. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart there. Jalen Marshall, both really good deep ball guys. Jalen Marshall was a deep ball guy in Ohio State. He's really shown it off. They're great with the double move, really putting the Commander secondary, which looked amazing last week and actually looked like a good defense this week. They were putting them in precarious situations. They're loaded at wide receiver. They probably are 4 deep at wide receiver with guys that can go make plays. And then their defense is very opportunistic. Not necessarily a shutdown defense, not necessarily a defense that's going to win the football game for you. As in, they're not going to pitch a shutout. They're not going to force the team to, they're not going to be this shutdown defense, but they're opportunistic. They get turnovers when they need them. They score on these turnovers, and they have a secondary that flies around. Especially, I think that's their strength for this team is their ability to get in the lane of get in passing lanes, and a secondary that flies around and makes plays. The next one is for the San Antonio Commanders. My takeaways, Woodside did okay. I think he kind of got his rhythm taken away from him when they decided to go with Marquise Williams. That was a bad move by Mike Riley, in my opinion. It doesn't make sense to go from the hot hand that just scored you 2 touchdowns and go with a guy that hasn't had any live game reps. I mean, he got 1 2-point conversion last week, but going with him for a drive, and he definitely showcased that he's not a strong passer. I don't think he might be able to throw the ball well, but I don't think he's confident enough to make throws. Logan Woodside is confident enough to throw the ball in tight windows, and that might get him in some bad situations, but he's giving his players opportunity to make plays, and a lot of times his receivers have because he has a good receiving core for this league. The defense was fooled a lot. Their defense looked good for the most part, but in the passing game, they're biting on those double moves, really coming down and then getting beat deep over the top with them. And that Apollo's offense was setting them up really well. And then Gilbert's eyes really fooled them a lot too. I think he was getting those safeties where he wanted them to be out of position to throw back on these deep streaks. Moving on to game 4. Game 4 with Sims, he did better. The Atlanta Legends, Sims did better. The O-line did a little better. They looked like they improved a little bit, but the reality is they didn't play as good a team as the Apollos. They lost by 12 points. They've given up the most points. Their defense is definitely suspect. It looks like it has gaping holes in that defense. I just think that this is overall the worst team in the league, and it's showing, and it's going to continue to show. I think their best chance to win, I don't even know if they have a good chance to win against the Memphis Express, just because I don't see one thing on this team that they excel at. They don't really excel in the run game, I don't think. They don't really excel in the passing game. They're just okay in the passing game. They're not great in the running game. So with that, this team doesn't have a lot to build on, and these are things they need to fix if they want to make a run for the championship game in Las Vegas, which at this point is very far away for them. With the Fleet, they improved. They looked better this week. They established their run game early with Gardner. They weren't overloading the passing game with Nelson, although he did make that crazy over the head throw. Nelson overall did okay, I think. He really was more of a game manager. He wasn't a game controller. He didn't try and take over the game. He understood the game plan, which I believe their game plan was to feed the rock to Gardner and that running back committee. And Gardner was the first to have the most rushing yards in the league so far. Him and Stacy from Memphis both eclipsed 100 yards. Gardner got 104. I don't know if he has the most rushing yards in the league. I'm sorry. He had the most rushing yards this week with 104. He had 2 touchdowns. He really took over, came out as the #1 running back for this team this week. And the team overall, again, seemed to improve. Their defense played pretty decently. Only gave up 9 points. But again, that offense is weak, so it's something that we're going to look at going forward. I think their pass rush is still good. They still have a good pass rush. Their secondary is opportunistic, and they're able to tip passes or really exceed off of forcing these quarterbacks to throw it into tight windows, succeed in forcing these quarterbacks to throw into tight windows, and then really catch the interceptions off these tip balls, these high balls. It's a good defense. They had Mueller get a second pick. Not the best defense in the league, not the best offense in the league. I think they're pretty balanced, a middle-of-the-road team, and we'll see that going forward. They'll definitely vie for a playoff spot, I believe, going forward, but I just don't think they're going to cut it and make it. So really good game overall. I was really impressed with the last 2 games more than I was the first 2. The Memphis-Arizona game was exciting in the fourth quarter for sure with the Justin Stockton run, the Rashad Ross kind of explosion in the second half. So it was a lot more of an exciting game in that Memphis game. The Birmingham game and the Stallions game wasn't crazy exciting until the very end as well, but it wasn't even an offensive game. It was more this defensive special teams kind of punt, field position game. Something that it really reminded me of the Super Bowl. Honestly, that's what the Iron game reminded me of. The Apollos San Antonio game was the best game so far. Really exciting. I was pretty captivated by it. I was at work, sneaking in the video at my job, which I hope none of my employers watch this, but I was definitely trying to watch the game while I was at work because it was that captivating, and it was a really good game. Game 4 didn't disappoint either. It was exciting. The Fleet came back from a 9-0 deficit and came back, took over, won 24-12, again off that running game. So good games overall, exciting. My question for this video is going to be, what team do you think will have the highest attendance next week? Our 2-time repeat highest attendance game was the San Antonio Commanders. They don't have a home game. They're traveling to San Diego. So the 4 teams that have a home game this week, which team do you expect to have the highest attendance? Thank you for clicking on the video. If you liked it, please leave a like, guys. If you have any comments for me, how I can do better, how I can improve, let me know. I would love to hear them. And I'm out, guys.